You got it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WAN show. I gotta tell you, this is the least prepared I have been for the show in quite some time. I couldn't find the capture card, I couldn't find my chair, and I couldn't even find my regular co-host. But for many of you, that probably won't be much of a problem because you might remember that this is Mr. Scott Wasson, who has actually joined us a couple of times in the past, though it would have been in his previous role as the editor-in-chief and owner of Tech Report. So, I think we actually covered it on the show, but just to be clear, what's this capsaicin nonsense you're wearing on your shirt here?
Oh, so capsaicin is an event that we've had a couple of them at GDC.
I kind of meant who's we now.
I should say. So I left the Tech Report a little over a year ago and joined AMD. So I'm in the Radeon Technologies group at AMD, and so working with the GPU guys, especially in Radeon Gaming. And so Capsaicin is an event we've had at the Game Developers Conference.
Mm-hmm. That we didn't get to attend because NVIDIA was busy telling us about Vulkan,
right.
I think was what most of that presentation. Meanwhile, Luke is sitting here with like a video with, I think, 700,000 views or something on YouTube explaining pretty much what he sat in the presentation hearing. I was kind of sitting here, when are you going to talk about 1080 Ti? Are you going to talk about 1080 Ti yet? Anyway, sorry, so Capsaicin, the event we missed. Yes, please carry on.
Yeah, well, it's basically we're talking with developers about our new tech, right? So we talk about things like Vega architecture at Capsaicin, what we're doing in terms of, GPU open, various things that we do to help game developers make their games better in our GPUs. So,
this feels like kind of a you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of situation. We've never, once we have. But okay, in the last 3 years, we haven't allowed a manufacturer to co-host the WAN show with us. So you mentioned Vega there. Do you have anything you can share with us?
New stuff? I don't know. We've talked a lot about Vega, given it's not actually out yet. We said it's coming soon, and we talked a ton about the architecture, right? We've actually disclosed a ton.
I'm so mean putting you on the spot like that.
And I've talked about Vega architecture with a lot of people, and I love talking about it. There's some cool stuff that we're doing.
So we're going to chat about that later. Yeah. And we've got a lot of other great topics for you guys, including, this is awkward, Nvidia releasing the Titan XP, Apple to begin making their own GPUs, Nvidia to release Pascal drivers for macOS, and YouTube updates the partner program. That seems safe.
Yeah. Some of these topics, I think as an AMD person, if I talk about them, they load me into a cannon and shoot me into the sun.
Cool.
So I can't talk about like stuff that I can't talk about like stuff that like AMD's customers did or things like that. But we'll tiptoe through this thing.
Yeah, but I'm sure we'll make our way through the show. I mean, it wouldn't be WAN show if there wasn't an awkward moment or somebody getting fired into the sun or whatever the case may be. All right, Buzzer, Squarespace, Freshbooks. Why isn't AMD in here?
We'll work on that, man.
I guess they provided us with one Scott Wasson to keep us company today. So why don't we just jump right into something that you can talk about a little bit? So YouTube has updated their partner program. Nowadays, the original article here is over from TechCrunch.com. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up for you guys. And this is kind of crazy because I've been playing the YouTube game long enough that I actually do remember a time when YouTube invited you. Specifically, like they would email you out of the blue and invite you to their partner program. And it wasn't until quite a bit later that they opened it up for people to be able to apply. And then it wasn't until quite a bit later after that they changed. It was kind of a quiet rollout. Do you remember this? Where all of a sudden, like the random video of like somebody's cat getting picked up by an eagle or whatever would have an ad on it.
Well, that is pretty cool if a cat got picked up by an eagle.
I think the one I was thinking of was actually a kid getting picked up by an eagle, and then it turned out to
cool,
be fake.
But also interesting.
Yeah. So basically, this is all in response to a big controversy that's actually been going on in the YouTube space over the last little while. And I'm going to get someone to maybe, hey, Max? Is someone in the warehouse? No? Okay. So basically, it's been, oh, yes, Jake, perfect. Can you move the foil so that it's not hanging into the top right of the frame there? Beautiful, thank you. Okay, never mind, we're good. Carry on. So basically, this has been part of a big controversy that's been going on right now on YouTube. Have you been paying attention to this?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so long story short, for those of you who haven't been in the loop, is YouTube, Google, is getting their advertisers pulled. So whether the piece of content is one about, hating a particular ethnicity of people, or about how this person is so wrong they should be just put up against a wall and shot, or whatever the controversial piece of content is, YouTube has been scaling back on delivering ads on that content in response to very large multinational brands pulling their advertising dollars when they realized that their ad was being shown on this type of content. And I mean, maybe this is something you can comment on a little bit. I mean, do you imagine from an AMD perspective that might be a reasonable reaction?
Oh, I mean, yeah, you don't want to see your brand next to some hate-filled rant or something like that. I mean, that's terrible, right?
I mean, okay, but not everybody feels that way. So we got a lot of feedback from our audience when we sided with the big brands, the big evil brands, saying that wouldn't feel inappropriate to them, and they kind of went, well, an eyeball's an eyeball. What difference does it make? Why does that matter?
Wow. Well, I mean, first of all, of course, just from a very businessy perspective, you don't want to be associated with hateful things as a brand. It's not good marketing, right? And secondly, and maybe not secondly, maybe this should always be first, but there's just the ethical issue of sponsoring and giving money to that kind of thing, right? That's no good. And this is not that different from, like, if you run a forum. You guys run a forum.
Yep.
You get people who come in and post things. They'll post links to terrible stuff. So I remember, running the tech report, we imposed limits on who could post what when, so that you get to know who somebody is, give them a little bit of time so they don't just come in and put junk in, right? A lot of it's just signal to noise ratio, right? You want to improve that.
So here's the thing. The main argument that we heard back from our viewers was, well, the viewer should know the difference between the ad running in front of the video and the content that they're watching. Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
I don't think the viewer definitely should know, right? It's good for viewers to be smart, but at the same time,
it's good for viewers to be smart.
Right.
Scott Watson, 2017.
At the same time, no, I mean, you don't want to be associated with that, and they had to take some basic common sense steps, and it seems like that this type of threshold, a relatively small number of views, is a common sense step to me.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so that's fair. So anyway, basically, in response to this, YouTube is updating the partner program. So this is part of the measures that they're taking. To be clear, some of which I believe have been too far. There's been content that has had the advertising pulled from it that, remember, this could be the, coming from where you come from as a website owner in the past who relied on advertising revenue. Can you imagine if you were falsely flagged as a hate website and Google pulled your AdSense or whatever partners you were working with just pulled the money with no negotiation, no warning, no nothing? I mean, what would that mean for you?
Yeah, no, it stinks, right? And I actually don't have to imagine too much, because we used to have that problem where people would post some random link in the forums and Google would come in and say, you guys are no good, and they'd pull your ads for a while. And there aren't a lot of people working behind those algorithms, so it takes a while to get reinstated, right? And so the revenue's gone until you can get them to bring it back.
And now he works at AMD. So that should give you some idea what happens. You could end up working at AMD. So, so basically, though, in an where was I going with this? Right. So that sucks. But the reality of it is there's like however many hundreds of thousands of hours of footage uploaded to YouTube every minute, or whatever those numbers work out to. And the reality of it is they can't go through everything. And when they're trying to respond to a bunch of brands pulling their funding, they have to over respond and then tweak the algorithm to whitelist things back in. The good news, though, if you're a content creator and you're out there, is that you can appeal these strikes. And from what I know about how YouTube's algorithmic machine learning works behind the scenes, my understanding, and I've heard of this happening, but I've never personally witnessed it, but I've heard from creators who have heard from creators that for things like fair use, for example, if you're getting frequently flagged by algorithmic or automated copyright strikes and you appeal them many, many times, it kind of learns who the bad uns and the good uns are. So it would be a good idea probably to appeal any kinds of strikes that you've received or any demonetization. One inconvenient thing is that we had to manually go through our videos and see which ones were demonetized. It just happened. I mean, would an email summary have killed you, YouTube? Hey, by the way, we turned off all the money on these videos.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. So effective immediately, YouTube will not allow ads on channels that have fewer than 10,000 lifetime views across all the videos on that channel. And to be clear, this is a very low threshold. You only need like one video to go nano-viral in order to get 10,000 views. So what this pretty much means, though, is that most videos that are obscure and offensive enough to never really find much of an audience have no chance of having an advertiser placement on it. It's also this isn't in my notes, but purely from my perspective, this is great because why are those guys getting ad inventory when established channels like us still don't have 100% fill rates? I don't really understand that. I mean, clearly someone who's getting 42 views per video, this is not a source of revenue for them anyway. Why are you putting an ad in front of the viewer, potentially hampering that person's ability to grow on the platform, and then not serving the ad to someone who actually is relying on the platform instead? There is something to be said for that. And remember, guys, we're talking 10,000 views. Nobody is thinking about going YouTuber full-time before they have 10,000 views. So I don't see this being significantly harmful to guys that are just starting out. So that's my kind of 2 cents on that. Oh, this is interesting. It's also intended to block channels that steal content from other sources and prevent them from deriving revenue from the platform. That's actually something we've seen a lot.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah. Just these channels will pop up overnight, and they'll have 200 of our videos ripped and just retitled so that they look a little bit different. And because our partner agreement doesn't allow us to automatically see those and get like a report for them, they just kind of sit there until one of our viewers contacts us and lets us know that they're there, and then we can get them ripped down. But in the meantime, they're potentially collecting AdSense checks, and they can't be very big ones, but still, it's ridiculous.
Well, involving this type of threshold, 10,000 views, also rules out a bunch of stuff, right?
Yep.
And then when something becomes over that, it's possible that Google could get human editors involved to vet some things, right, to make sure they're okay. But they don't. This filters out a lot of noise. They don't have to think about it if it's a really, really small number of views.
All right. Wow, we've got a lot of stuff that's going to be kind of hard for you to comment on. I didn't realize it was going to be quite so bad.
Yeah, the list is interesting. We could try, though. It's all good.
We could try. We're just going to, the entire rest of the WAN show is going to be the what can Scott say versus what can he not say. So why don't we jump into Xbox Project Scorpio. So the source here is Eurogamer. Let's go ahead and pull that up. But basically, there's specs, there's games, there's VR peripherals, backwards compatibility, basically everything that these guys know about Project Scorpio at this time. I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in the Twitch chat if you guys want to get the more in-depth version of it later. But no, I'm not going to be able to do that. Long story, but it'll be in the document on the forum a little bit later. But in a nutshell, Project Scorpio is the much rumored mid-generation upgrade to the Xbox One. So what that means as a mid-generation upgrade is that all the games and peripherals that run on the Xbox One today, like, for example, the Kinect.
It's exciting. Exciting? I can feel the excitement.
Oh, man. The excitement is palpable, man. Will work on the new system. Anyway, so other than VR games, there won't be any Project Scorpio exclusives. So here's what we know so far spec-wise. AMD got yet another design win because it wouldn't be much of a mid-cycle upgrade if it wasn't, using pretty much the same processor. So it'll have 8 custom AMD cores clocked at 2.3 gigahertz, 326 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth, an 1172 megahertz GPU with 40 customized compute units. So let's ignore customization. What would 40 compute units kind of look like on the desktop on your side?
Okay, so an RX 480 is 36 compute units.
Okay.
So this is a little bit bigger than an RX 480 as a GPU.
Okay. An RX 480 powers a pretty darn good gaming experience at 1080 to 1440 high details, and you can even go 4K if you want to talk about like esports type titles no, I wasn't going to say, For Honor or whatever.
Right, not Deus Ex Mankind Divided, but some of those easier ones.
Yeah. So it's got 12 gigs of GDDR5 memory. Oh, wow, that's quite a lot more than before, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm just happy to see this is looking more like kind of a high-end PC.
Right.
The history here is we kind of had this gap. Like Xbox 360 was like 7-8 years between Xbox 360 and Xbox One.
Yep.
And when they came out with it, and before, like in the past, like when the 360 came out, it really rivaled the high-end PC.
Yeah.
Xbox One.
PS3 too, actually.
Right, they did.
More than rivaled. That thing was incredible.
In fact, as an old PC guy, the whole thing you always hear is the PC is going to die because the new consoles. There's always a panic.
It's always
around.
dying.
There was no panic around the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 when they first came out because they were kind of low in mid-range.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting now. We're seeing the re-upping more quickly to kind of get that additional power back because of things like VR happening,
right,
and things like that. So I'm just happy to see a high-end spec on the new console.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because when the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 launched, we did a piece comparing in every cross-platform, like 3-way cross-platform game we could get our hands on. So stuff like, I think it was Black Flag was the Assassin's Creed that launched with those. Is that right? Does that seem right?
Yeah, that seems right.
Black Flag, I think there was a COD of some sort or a Battlefield of some sort. I can't remember. Whatever it was. Anyway, what we did was we captured a whack ton of in-game cinematics, cutscenes, engine-rendered cutscenes.
Right.
We captured a bunch of gameplay, and we really looked close at what we were getting in terms of finished image quality, after weird upscaling tricks and all that kind of stuff. And we're not talking like we took the still grabs and we put them in Photoshop and overlaid to find the differences, but we were looking to kind of get pretty darn close. And what we discovered was that to build a PC, bearing in mind you got to buy a case and you got to buy a power supply and all that, a storage device, all that boring stuff that isn't a CPU and a GPU, RAM to a lesser extent.
Right.
We found that we had to spend about $500 to get pretty equivalent, or $400 to get pretty equivalent to those.
Yeah.
But that was about it. As soon as you stepped up past that, I think we ended up using a 260X was what we ended up putting in our equivalent PC system.
Right.
Whereas nowadays, if we're talking about a GPU in there that speculatively, obviously all Scott can talk about is how many compute units and what clock speed a 480 is, because that's why he's here to talk to me right now. That's all we can talk about. Excuse me. But what we can say is that we just did a, where is it? Oh, it looks like we've moved it. But we filmed a PC build guide earlier this week even that was targeting about $1,000 and contained an RX 480.
Yeah.
Just to give a better idea of what class of computer this new Xbox might look comparable to. It's also going to have 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray disc support if you still watch movies off of physical media. It'll support native 4K gaming, although, again, I wouldn't set my expectations too incredibly high, and Scott doesn't have to say anything, but too incredibly high with respect to, you know, what kind of games at what kind of detail levels you're going to be running at full native 4K. And it's going to have support for VR, which, you know, maybe you can talk a little bit about VR. So the big news recently was that PSVR has sold how many more times more units than all the PC headsets combined?
Yeah, was it 4x or more?
Something like that. I can't remember. I'm going to go look it up. But how's that going? Because speaking of PC being dead, there's an awful lot of VR is dead. What's AMD's perception of that?
I don't know about the whole company's perception, but I'll give you mine. Okay. I have both the Vive and the Rift, and I've been enjoying
You're such a nerd, man.
Yeah, I am, and I'm enjoying them. And I kind of been a little bit of a Rift fanboy because I like the tracking, the inside-out tracking on the Rift, and I like the the Vive's fanboy. Like the inside-out tracking on the Vive, I like the room scale.
Yeah, I love the room scale.
I think it's the right way to go. Finally, Oculus, though, came out with touch. They've got experimental room scale. They're doing the right things. But the most important development in VR to me in the past while is the release of a game that Oculus has now as a pack-in for free with the touch, and that's Robo Recall. It's one of these that they funded the development.
Right.
That sweet Facebook money, they funded the development of a game that Epic built for them, right?
Right.
And Robo Recall is the best VR title by a long shot in my view. I've been playing this every day, multiple times. It's like my little workout every day because it is so good. It is the feel. It's a shooter. I'm a shooter fan. Love Borderlands, love that stuff. The feel, they got it right. So the touch feel of the shooter, fantastic. The action is really great, and I think people who put on a Rift and play that game will spend money. It will open up wallets. It's one of those game sell systems.
Right.
Right? And that is a huge thing. And it's unfortunate because I haven't heard enough buzz around this game.
Right.
If you have the chance, try it.
I will.
If you're a skeptic about VR and you go try that, I think you'll be converted. And it's funny. It's software that turns out to be the thing that needed to happen in order to make the hardware sell. But that's, you know, we've seen it millions of times in the past with new platforms.
Yeah. On the subject of games selling systems, SteamOS. That's a perfect example of how you can have a cool idea. And even more than a cool idea, SteamOS actually made its way to the market as a finished product, not just as a software product, but you could actually buy a SteamOS gaming console. We reviewed one. The problem was that Valve, bless their open philosophy, didn't create a killer title to push that console out into the market. And it's I haven't heard a thing about SteamOS pretty much since I published my thing declaring that it was dead when it launched.
Right.
So you think we need more games, and that's why AMD is still really focused on VR in like the slides that we didn't look at today and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, VR is a focus. If you're an enthusiast for this stuff, if you're into it and you've been playing with things, then you know it's still very exciting.
Right.
And if the games are there and it's exciting, eventually I think people will buy it. The other thing that's happening that needs to continue happening is the price has to come down.
Right.
Right? If PSVR is cheaper,
Yep.
that's probably one of the reasons they sold a lot.
So I've got those numbers. They confirmed in, I think it was, looks like February, that they had sold almost 1 million PSVR units so far, and that was a little under double the reported numbers for the Rift and the Vive as of the end of 2016. So that's all we... Okay, so it depends on how we're calculating. HTC would only confirm they've sold more than 140,000, while Superdata Research estimated 420,000 Vives. So it really depends how we're calculating. So it's somewhere between triple to just under double compared to those guys. And at $400, that makes sense, given that it's, what, $600 for the Vive, and then, man, is Rift still $600 plus touch?
The Rift with touch went to $598.
Did it go to $598?
But the Vive, I think, is still $799, right?
HTC Vive. You know what? I live in Canada, and our currency is rupees.
Right.
So when I bought mine, it was like $950 or $900 or something like that. So it's hard for me to comment on pricing sometimes. I just lose track, but I can look that up anyway. So cool. So Xbox Project Scorpio VR 4K, much faster, looking more like a $899 $1,000 PC than a $399 $499 PC. And what's cool is that developers won't necessarily have to use the extra processing power of Project Scorpio to hit 4K. They could just channel that towards a better looking 1080p experience instead, which is what, if anyone's asking me, I would probably strongly recommend, because if you've seen my recent video before it got pulled down due to a copyright claim against it, which I still might dispute because it was definitely fair use, like definitely fair use of that footage from the movie. But if you did see, I am really not that sold on 4K and what kind of a difference it makes at a living room distance. How about you?
I bought a new TV.
As
My
Scott
TV,
Watson,
my
okay?
TV died not long ago.
As Scott, not as
no.
AMD. Okay,
I'll tell
4K
you.
in the living room.
My TV died not long ago.
Okay.
And it was like upgrade opportunity here. I got to get a new TV.
Yes,
right?
TV's dead.
And I looked around a little, and you can look up online. Have you seen the little calculators?
Yeah.
How close to a TV you have to sit to notice the different resolutions, and like how large that TV then has to be. And it's like you'd have to have a chair like 4 feet from your TV in the middle of your living room to notice 4K, even with the pretty large panel. And I went out and I bought recently a 1080p panel instead. for my
Really?
living room. I did.
You
Yeah.
bought a 1080p
Now,
TV.
I'm going to regret it because of HDR and OLED and all that.
Yeah.
Except I don't regret it in the sense that my TV budget can go to that later. But there was no point in buying 4K for the distance that my couch is from the screen for the size of screen I had. Yeah, no, I believe in better pixels. I like high refresh. I like high dynamic range. I like high color gamut more than I want more pixels for a display that sits across the room.
Okay, now tell me this. Maybe you don't know anything, which would probably be optimal because I'd love for you to be able to speculate.
Okay.
Are we ever going to get a gaming TV?
So.
Okay, I'm gonna add more to my question.
Right. Okay.
Because we've got technologies, like we've got amazingly fast processors now that are cheap enough that you can put them in a TV without killing the BOM cost.
Right.
Not that those didn't exist before, and they couldn't have done that years ago, and there's no reason for the menu navigation to have been clunky. Anyway, so we've got lightning-fast processors. We've got OLED panels that are theoretically capable of refresh rates higher than 60 hertz.
Yeah.
For sure. We've got interfaces that are both widely available, well-established, and also cheap to implement, like DisplayPort. When are we going to get a gaming TV, a proper one?
Yeah, I don't know the answer, right? I wish
Okay, well,
I
that's
did.
good.
I wish
Maybe
I
you
did.
can speculate.
I can tell you that one thing that we've done that's kind of interesting recently is extend FreeSync support to HDMI.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the consumer electronics folks, HDMI is their format, right? But variable refresh displays are a very, very nice thing to have for gaming. And so there's now the possibility, at least, of people building around that.
That's all we're gonna get.
That's
eh?
I haven't tracked that, and it would be
Tell me this.
I'd love to give you good news. I can go and check. I can talk to our display guys, but I don't know what's happening.
Okay, so true, 144, 165 hertz display with low persistence OLED gaming TV. What kind of a premium would you pay for that?
Me? Oh, it would be a ridiculous premium, right? $400-$500 maybe. I don't know. If I'm in the I mean, you're talking about an expensive TV already.
Yeah, we're talking
right?
feature identical.
Right, but
except
I mean,
for that.
Because it's so rare. It's so rare, right? TVs often have high latency. Then they'll have like a game mode button, and you press it, and nothing happens.
Sometimes it doesn't even help. LG is notorious for this. I mean, I love LG. I really do. Got friends over at LG, but holy crap, your game mode doesn't work. And like, this is intentional. They know. I mean, it's not like they don't know. They have the tools to measure this stuff. They know. They were like, well, we didn't want to compromise on the image quality. Well, then don't have a game mode. Don't lie to me. Just tell me it's bad for games. But anyway.
Yeah, somebody's going to do it, right? I mean, sure, though, these things are happening. I mean, 8K and hopefully high refresh, high color gamut, OLEDs, all these techs are going to be out there. It's just, like you say, it's a small step from those technologies which are capable of high-speed refresh, right? It's a small step from that to having, and maybe it's not even fast processing. Maybe it's just turn off the post-processing and let my input device send something out that's tone map for the display. And
right.
Right. We're working on that with a thing called FreeSync 2 with HDR, where it's like, okay, we'll tone map to your display. It comes right out. It's a low latency. It's for PC monitors primarily.
Right.
But the concept is simple, right? The GPU can know and do the right thing, and then the picture's right out, so you don't have that post-processor in the way.
Yeah, I would absolutely, I would just absolutely love to have that. You know what else I'd absolutely love to have? A show where we don't have to have sponsors, but you know how it is. We got to pay the bills somehow. So I'm just going to go ahead and find my notes. Damn, I had one more thing I wanted to talk about the whole TV thing before I transitioned into this. It was something to do with, shoot. I was gonna kind of jump in. It was directly related to what you were saying at the beginning of that bit. You do remember what that was by any chance?
I don't remember what you were thinking.
Bloody hell, I'm doomed. Doomed to forever not remember what I was going to say. That's okay. Anyway, our first sponsor of the day is Moss Products. These guys have all kinds of great stuff, and they've got lifetime warranties to boot on all of their cables. So I've actually got some of their stuff open here. They've got lots of, gorgeous sleeved cables with like reinforced connectors, but this is the coolest part, not that, is actually the spring that they put as a strain relief on the end here, so you don't end up with it fraying as it comes out of the connector. They've got a whole bunch of other stuff as well, including the Moss backpack. This guy is pretty cool because it's got basically like a built-in charging hub. So you just plug in one cord that comes out of this little zipper doodad right here. You plug that in, and then it's got an additional outlet for your laptop, and then it's got a couple USB ports for the devices that are already sitting in your bag when you come home at the end of the day. A wild Luke appears and eats some pizza, and these ones might actually be my favorite. These are really cool. So these are little, they're magnetic, so they're kind of hard to get out of the package, but don't worry, you will only have to do that once. So they've got little adhesive stickers that come with them. Then you stick them down, somewhere on your desk or on your nightstand or whatever else. And then to make sure that your cables don't fall down to the floor, you just stick the connectors to them, and then they're there. They're ready for you when you need them. I think that's freaking awesome. So you can check them out over at mossorganizer.com/Linus. We'll have that linked in the video description if you are watching the archive. And that brings us to Freshbooks. Freshbooks is whether you're running a small, I always say dance studio. What's a business you could run out of your garage? Yoga studio. Okay, very closely related.
Microcomputer startup. Right?
That's the other example.
The Steve Jobs story. Right?
I always use if you have like a small tech shop or whatever the case may be. If you're a small business owner or you are an entrepreneur or a freelancer, FreshBooks can help you keep track of your time and expenses, invoice your clients much more quickly. Like it takes like 30 seconds to send off a professional looking invoice. And what's cool is that beyond that, you can actually have them pay through the platform, and you can see when they've seen the invoice, so you can put an end to that hey, did you get that invoice I sent? Oh, yeah, no, I didn't get it yet. Can you send it again? Oh, yeah, sure. You know what? I didn't get it again. Could you send it one more time? And then you finally, no. Put an end to that. Know that they've seen it and get paid faster. I think, hold on, FreshBooks. Oh, yeah, and Squarespace. Look at that. Wow, the ad team is like on fire today. So Squarespace is hold on. No, I didn't finish up my FreshBooks spot. So you can try FreshBooks for free by heading to freshbooks.com/WAN and entering WAN in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Oh, and they have a mobile card reader now as well. Squarespace is the place to go if you want to build a website that is simple, powerful, beautiful, all those old slogans that we are not allowed to use anymore. They get mad at us if we use their old company slogans.
I get it.
You can see that. Is AMD going to start getting mad if we start talking about Team Red? Because I can't find any red on the website anymore.
Really?
Yeah, it's all orange for Ryzen, and then...
So go to Radeon.com. There's lots of red.
Oh, okay.
We busted that off into separate things.
So you guys absconded with the red.
There's plenty of red over at Radeon.com.
Plenty of red. Okay. All right. So anyway, Squarespace, whether you're running a little league sports team or that small business that you run that you're using FreshBooks for your accounting and Moss to organize your cables or whatever the case may be. Maybe it needs a website. So for just $12 a month with a free domain thrown in, if you buy Squarespace for the year, you can get set up. Your website will feature responsive design, so it'll scale to look great on any device, and their cloud-based utility is super easy to use. You type in the copy you want after you pick a template, you throw in some pictures, and boom, you are ready to rock. And they offer 24/7 support via live chat and email if you're having any trouble. They've got all kinds of great features like their logo designer, their cover pages feature that lets you throw up a one-page website in a matter of minutes, and they've even got support for Apple News format directly from the Squarespace blog module. So try it out with a trial. Yeah, sure. Try a trial with no credit card required, and make sure to use offer code WAN to save 10% on your first purchase when you sign up for Reels. All right. So what else we got here today? Oh, this is absolutely killing me that I can't remember what that TV thing that I was trying to remember was. I'm dying here. Oh, okay. I did have a question.
Okay.
So FreeSync over HDMI. Mm-hmm. Right now, FreeSync support. Bye, Nick. Thank you for disrupting the show. Appreciate that. See ya. So FreeSync support doesn't require any special intervention on the display scaler side in a monitor. Basically, just new scalers are coming with support for the latest DisplayPort or whatever the case may be, and it's just kind of in there. Would you expect something like that to happen naturally on the TV side?
So there are two different ecosystems there, right?
Yep.
TVs are consumer electronics instead of PC. Consumer electronics has HDMI, PCs have DisplayPort.
But
There's a split.
But you support FreeSync over HDMI. So.
But if you're asking about it being natural, the natural thing is for the divide to continue. Maybe we'll find a nice partnership and break that, but I don't think it would be natural. I think it would take a little bit of effort, right? If you're asking the question, that's the answer.
If there was anything that I could do to make that happen, I personally believe quite strongly in I remember what I was going to talk about. Right. I think they have to do this. So if anyone from LG or Samsung or Sharp, whatever, I don't care, just Physio, anybody is watching this, here's why I think they have to do this. 4K in the living room is eagle eyes only need apply. I think the benefit for a lot of people, considering the difficulty that Blu-ray even has, that DVD still exists. Yeah. And that looks a lot better than DVD. Considering that, 4K is going to have a hard time being the selling point that ultimately moves TVs, especially because the content is years and years away in big markets like the United States. I mean, when are you actually expecting to watch Sunday Night Football in 4K at 60 frames per second?
Yeah, I don't know.
Come on. Come on. So we don't need the resolution unless the screen size gets bigger. And I'll get back to that in a minute. HDR. HDR is another pretty tough selling point because unless the content is mastered very well, the difference side by side is noticeable. But the difference just walking into a room and being shown a piece of content and being immersed in a movie,
not so much, huh?
It's tougher. It's a tougher sell.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider the fact that a lot of the difference in the way an HDR version of a movie appear, a lot of the difference between the HDR version of the movie and the regular Blu-ray version of the movie seems to be in the way that they've mastered it, not necessarily just in the extra capabilities that HDR gives you. So for example, I mean, think about it this way. If HDR was really something that, could not be captured on a display that can't display HDR, when we were filming side by side, TVs running HDR, non-HDR content, and marveling at how the HDR one, had, much more natural looking shadows. You could see so much more detail in the shadow. And you can see that on the screen. You kind of go, okay, so some of this is HDR and some of this is enabled by this wider color and this much wider contrast capability of the display, but some of it is also in the way that they master it. And I think right now I've only seen one movie that just blew me away, and that was Life of Pi. And we're a long way away from, I think, every movie and every game having an HDR mode that's really meaningful. So Deus Ex Mankind Divided is another game that I've played with and without HDR.
Yeah.
And for me, same thing. If I looked at them side by side, I'd pick out the HDR one. I'd go, that's better. Mm-hmm. If I didn't see them side by side,
wouldn't notice.
I probably wouldn't notice.
Right.
Or if you asked me which one's HDR, I could probably tell you. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't sit down in front of some game and sit and play and enjoy a game and go, wow, this is sure enhancing my gaming experience.
Right.
So that leaves us with this sort of, and this is something the TV industry has struggled with for quite some time. Mm-hmm. How do we drive up ASPs? How do we keep from just being a $399 device?
Commodity
Device. And you can't make them bigger anymore. It's gotten to the point where they are as big as they can practically be until we're talking about holographic displays, in my opinion, because they're not transportable.
Yeah. No, I see. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Bring us a gaming display. That's my argument.
It's a good argument. Can we talk a little bit about the whole thing, though? Because I think there's a path to success for some of this.
Yeah.
Right? It seems like what the consumer electronics guys are doing with the next generation of stuff is they're packaging up several things together. 4K,
Yep.
high dynamic range,
Yep.
which is, more contrast between light and dark, more steps in between.
Yep.
And then wide color gamut,
Yep.
which is actually in some ways more exciting for me. If you've ever tried to take a picture of the sunset with a digital camera and you don't get the colors, right? Your color gamut is not wide enough.
Yeah.
And there's a wide gamut camera and display on the iPhone 7. My son has a OnePlus 3. We go out and we both take pictures of the same sunset. The wide gamut is way better. We kind of joke around about it. And that's not even as wide as you can go.
Joke's on you. He paid half as much for his phone.
He did, and I like that sunset picture. I don't know if I like it, $400, but I like the picture.
Sure.
But I have seen. I think one of the problems we have right now in the ecosystem is getting the content and the tone mapping to the particular displays and their capabilities all set up so you have this really robust content that takes advantage of all the capabilities of the display and then is properly mapped to what the individual displays can do.
Yeah, and it's going to be really hard to do that.
It is, but these things are being worked out. We had a demo that we ran in a couple of our trade show booths that was, I think, LG, where they went and they filmed the video. They did the tone mapping for their display, and they're showing this loop. And it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen on an electronic screen. It was amazing. Right. And the potential is there. And I think that although I really do have more affinity for HDR and wide gamut than for more pixels, I think the 4K is going to be part of the package
Sure.
of when they figure all this stuff out. Games, though. Can we talk about games?
Yeah, let's talk about games.
So games, there's sort of a first step and then a second step toward HDR for gaming.
Right.
So the first step is basically this.
Half-Life, Lost Coast.
Well, no, yeah, we did HDR way
Okay,
back when.
there's 3 steps.
Right. But that was internal high dynamic range rendering mapping to a non-high dynamic range display.
Yeah.
Now, what we can do now is we have displays that really can show you more range and more contrast and more colors. And if you look at like a DirectX 11 GPU, they're using 32-bit floating point color format for red, green, blue, alpha.
Sure.
Right? That's a ton of internal precision. So all a game developer really has to do is take the beautiful lighting that they have in their engine, all the data they're putting out that's high fidelity, and tone map to the capability of the display properly.
Sure.
And you should get a nice result, right? But that's still we're still working on getting that done. But some of what happens when you do that is you may be revealing like the limitations of the source textures and content, right?
Interesting.
So in the long run, the entire tool chain for the game developer, from when they're building their textures through the shaders that they're using to render and all their lighting, everything out to the display needs to be end-to-end high dynamic range, high color gamut, all of that. And that's a longer road. It takes, 3-4 years to build a AAA game? And the tools have to change first.
So you're talking something kind of along the lines of how the Hollywood makeup industry got revitalized by the move to HD. How in SD, basically effects were getting kind of good enough and you could, kind of fudge it well enough.
Right.
But then as soon as we went HD, all these imperfections were totally visible, and for a period anyway, you had to go back to real props, real makeup, and maybe we're seeing. I mean, you saw. Spoiler alert, I guess Rogue One, if you haven't seen it. So there you go. But I mean, you saw Leia at the end, right?
Yeah, nah, the Uncanny Valley was real.
It was real, but it looked pretty close.
Maybe they're kind of starting to come back up toward the other side of the valley a little bit.
I don't know. It was a little creepy.
It still freaked me out.
She kind of looked like a sex doll. Like, how they're made with these super realistic features, and they're just like.
I feel like the different parts of her face at the end didn't move together in the right way. It kind of, anyway. But yeah, the source content also has to get better in the long run for HDR gaming too. Like, it can be good now.
Yeah, the point is every part of the chain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I can't ignore this any longer. The original article. Let's go with the one from Anon Tech. Nvidia announces the Titan XP.
Isn't that like an old story?
Fully enabled GP 102 for $1,200. So basically, they released the 1080 Ti, crapped on the owners of the Titan XP, which is what we were calling the new Titan X, but they never called it that. Then, like a week or two later, however long maybe it's more than that. Time flies. Anyway, a few weeks later, they're crapping on people who were like, yes, the 1080 Ti is the fastest card on the market. Now they're releasing a new card and crapping on me at the same time because I don't know what to call this thing. I've been running around calling the second coming of the Titan X the Titan XP since it launched because it was the Titan XP for Pascal. And now they have a Titan XP. So there's really only one solution. This will be the Titan XPP. Or the Titan XPP, if you'd prefer. GPU performance compared to the Maxwell Titan X. Why are we even reporting on this? What?
Don't ask me, dude.
Is improved by 84%. Why would we even compare to the what? Okay, anyway, compared to the 1080 Ti, 13% more memory bandwidth, 7% more shader, texture, geometry throughput, and 9% more ROP throughput, and it costs about, double, I guess? Mm-hmm. So there you go. Titans are still expensive, and they're still really fast. Apple, rumored to begin making their own GPUs. So the original article here is from Wired, and this is potentially a pretty freaking interesting development, because it is absolutely no secret that Apple believes in building its own IP wherever possible. And I'm not talking 192.168. something. I'm talking intellectual property, and they basically want to own pretty much anything that's important to them. And power consumption and performance of their biggest money-making device, the iPhone, is definitely something that is important to them. So they have announced, sorry, did I say rumor? Sorry. They have announced they will no longer be using their longtime GPU partner, Imagination, for new products 15 to 24 months from now. So by that time, we're probably talking, what would that be, iPhone 8S?
Yeah.
I guess?
Yeah.
They are replacing their GPU with a separate independent graphics design built in-house. Imagine doubts that Apple will be able to make their own GPUs without without violating their patents, intellectual property, and confidential information. So this looks like it might not be an entirely clean breakup, and AMD has certainly got a fair amount of experience with other companies running around trying to make GPUs, and sometimes probably not even intentionally infringing on patents, because whether your name is AMD or Radeon Technologies Group,
It's all part of the same thing, dude.
so whether your name is AMD or whether your name's Nvidia or even Intel, you own a lot of freaking IP when it comes to graphics technology. And it has gotten to the point where even if you had an unlimited amount of money and unlimited engineers and a fab, it would be pretty difficult to run out and compete with the RX 480 from the ground up. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. No, it's a tough thing to do. But yeah, Apple has all the money.
But even with all the money.
Well, but you know what? Look at what they did on the CPU side.
That's true.
Right? I mean, their CPU design team produced some pretty amazing low-power CPU cores with really nice performance. And this is sort of the next step in that progression in a way. They had more of a good relationship with ARM. They continued to license their instruction set. This is, we're moving away from your stuff entirely.
This is a big middle finger,
right.
15 to 24 months before they're even ready to ship anything.
But it's not the same with graphics, because with graphics, you use an API to get to the hardware.
Right.
So you don't have necessarily a low-level instruction set that you're using. You're using OpenGL or Metal or Vulkan or whatever it is.
Probably Metal.
Well, that's definitely Apple's low-level API, right? So I can see how this makes sense, and they build some really great stuff. I got to respect the hardware they build. So I could see them doing this and making it work.
Very interesting. So some of the questions brought up in the article is, well, why would Apple need to make their own GPU? And the answer is lagging behind competitors in GPU-heavy tasks such as their digital assistant, machine learning, and augmented and virtual reality. So Imagination Technologies' stock has crashed since the announcement, since about half of the company's annual revenue came from Apple. I mean, this has been rumored forever. Do you see Apple pulling this on a MacBook? I mean, this isn't a MacBook, it's a laptop. Mm-hmm. It's for illustrative purposes only, but do you see Apple trying to pull this on the MacBook? It's been rumored forever that they want to get Intel out of there. And I mean, I would assume it's not that far off for if they're going to replace x86 with their own ARM-based CPUs, that they might also just go, okay, yeah, well, screw it. Everything's an iPad with a keyboard now, so let's throw our Apple GPU in here.
Yeah, I have no idea what they're going to do. Right? People have been talking about them going to ARM for their CPUs forever, and they seem to have never done that. So if you keep predicting that, maybe at some point you get to be right. but I mean, I don't know. This seems like they get to do what they want. They make great stuff, and other than that, man, I can't speculate.
I'm gonna keep predicting that they're gonna bring back a desktop that you can actually upgrade. until it happens. What do you think? Is my prediction going to work?
I don't know. I like desktops that you can upgrade. I like build my own system though, so probably not the target market there.
On the subject of upgrading a Mac desktop, Nvidia to release Pascal drivers for Mac OS, which is a surprising announcement since Apple's desktops since 2013 have been AMD Fire Pro exclusive, or I guess you guys call those
Radeon Pro.
Yeah, Radeon Pro, thank you. Anyway, but AMD exclusive since launch, and that used kind of a weird format for the card that you weren't just going to be able to like grab some GPU out of a laptop and shunk it in there. And then on the laptop side, they've been AMD exclusive for how long now?
I don't know, honestly.
Wasn't it ever since
years.
the 8600 GT like fell apart?
Yeah, I'm really not sure.
I think it was, or 9600 maybe? It was back in that era. Yeah, it's been a long time. So, given that you can't put an Nvidia card in a Mac, this is a weird announcement, but it might be cool for certain folks. So, who are these drivers for? Within the Mac community, there's a small but vocal user group based around unsupported external GPUs. So while macOS doesn't support external GPUs, it is possible to use Macs with Thunderbolt EGFX with a Thunderbolt EGFX chassis. It's also possible, though not supported and definitely against the terms of service of OS X, to install macOS on a custom-built PC. It's called Hackintoshing. We've done a video on it in the past. So, wow, could this be the starts of some kind of a push from Nvidia to encourage Apple to consider their GPUs in the future? Is it just a big middle finger to Apple for not giving users the capability to install their GPUs? Is it a way of supporting the Hackintosh community, like, without overtly saying, go buy a Hackintosh and put our GPU in it? They just kind of quietly release a driver. Now that I think about it, if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably the big middle finger. Because, I'm sure you can speak to this at least. It's a fair bit of work to develop a driver.
Yes. There you go. Yes, that's my comment.
So this driver probably is, if you had to guess, is probably a political statement more than a practical investment into selling GPUs to the handful of people running external PCIe boxes.
Man, I can't comment on that at all. They'll put me in a cannon and shoot me into the sun if I talk about that.
All right. Let's see what else we've got here. Actually, we've talked about a lot of the really big stuff. Oh, no, this is pretty big. Okay. So Google and Facebook, around the time that one Mr. Donald J. Trump was elected president of the free United States of America, Google and Facebook were both engaged in a very earnest discussion industry-wide about fake articles that were running around claiming to be news. And to be clear, I'm staying out of it today anyway. I'm staying out of it today, and I will say this, that both sides, right and left, participated in the whole fake news echo chamber nonsense, okay? There's no such thing, and this is probably one of the closest things to an impartial, journalistic approach to writing anything that I've ever had the pleasure of, actually engaging with. And would you agree that it is impossible to have zero bias?
Yeah. And that's why this whole discussion seems weird to me, right? And I never heard of fake news until after the election. Right? And then all of a sudden it was a thing that we were all going to fix. Like if you solved that problem, then maybe if you didn't like the election outcome, then that would fix it. And it seems like have you look, I didn't like either one of our choices in the last election.
Yep.
But have you seen Hillary Clinton speak? Because I don't think the problem with her candidacy was fake news. Like it might have been the charisma black hole. I'm just saying.
I'm Canadian.
Right?
I didn't even have to pretend to make a choice. So it's, I didn't envy y'all down there, doing American
It was
choice
not a happy thing to go into that voting booth, let me tell you. But this doesn't seem like a fix for anything.
But you know what? I agree with your observation in that I had heard of the whole fake news thing, but I hadn't seen Hillary Clinton specifically complain about it and say it is a problem we need to solve until after the results came in. Yeah. And if you really felt that way about it, then it should have been the kind of thing that you were talking about in earnest. It might have been mentioned, not sure. But it should have been talked about in earnest before the results. And part of that could have just been hubris. It could have just been, the assumption that none of this even is important compared to other things because the election's a foregone conclusion anyway. But it still comes across a little insincere when you complain about it after the fact. So anyway, I do agree that something needs to be done, but I don't know if our benevolent overlords at Google and Facebook are necessarily the ones that I would choose. But like it or not, they are the gatekeepers to the information that a huge chunk of the world, not just America, needs. And like it or not, whether they like it or not, they are in this position where they've determined that they have a responsibility to filter or otherwise protect people from fake news. So the original article here for the Google bit, and this is off arstechnica.com, I love this site, is Google expands their automatic fact-check insertion into search results. Though you'll want to phrase your searches very carefully to trigger it, the article warns us. So basically, they've officially rolled out an automatic fact-check tag program on their search pages. So small snippets will display information about the claim made by a particular page and who made the claim, as well as the results of fact-checking on the highlighted claim. You will only see this if you specifically type in an oft-repeated claim. For example, if you search for the phrase, "How many undocumented immigrants are in the United States?" Normal search results appear with a mix of answers and data points, but specifically searching 34 million undocumented immigrants will bring up a fact-check box that credits President Donald Trump with the claim, along with a direct link to PolitiFact's Pants on Fire fact-checked rating. So the fact checks, to be clear, are not performed by Google, which absolves Google of responsibility, sort of, except that they're also presenting this as fact check, which has a pretty specific meaning in the dictionary. And they're using trusted publishers and fact checkers using an open system to mark claims as having been checked, and the service has been rolled out worldwide. Any thoughts?
So a couple of them. We just sort of established, I think, that we kind of agreed that it's very hard not to be biased. PolitiFact maybe falls into that category too. I'm not sure that they're always a great source. I think that they may have sometimes their own political agenda, and so putting them out there as an authority, I don't know. Another thing about this that is interesting to me, and I'd be interested to hear what you think. I think one of the things that has happened with Google and Facebook being these sort of gatekeepers to the internet is that it has become difficult for content creators to make money off of web publishing and things like this, which is why now we have the New York Times running clickbait headlines.
Yeah,
which is it's a crazy media world now, right? It's crazy, and So I think Google and Facebook bear some responsibility for the situation as it now exists, because they seem to take a lot of that money instead of the creators.
I see. That's an interesting take.
And I think that the reason that we have a lot of kind of poor reporting and like bad vetting of facts is because those institutions that used to do a good job are a lot poorer than they used to be.
That's interesting. So Facebook has kind of or Google has something of a moral responsibility to deal with the mess that they've made, where they've created an environment in which well-funded, well-staffed publications were able to make money online and publish that information and actually get the click-through, because through your Facebook feed or through a Google search with just like the answer, like you don't even have to click through to Wikipedia to get an answer to a Google search these days. So you think they bear like a moral responsibility to deal with this to an extent? To an extent,
and I think maybe the part of the answer is view and you guys deal with this with them in a more positive way, but view content creators as partners who you value, and find a way that you partner with them where they can be solvent doing what they do. Right. And in some cases that means publications that have large staffs of reporters and fact checkers who do the right thing instead of, the BuzzFeeds of the world or whatever.
Right.
Right.
Not that we're slinging any mud at BuzzFeed. There's a place for BuzzFeed too at the bottom of the ocean. There's no mud at the bottom of the ocean. We can't sling mud there.
There you go.
Well, there's lots of mud there, but anyway. Okay, now let's talk about Facebook's approach. So Facebook, original article here is from Business Insider. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Speaking of not generating click-through for Business Insider, so like I said, we'll have links to, you can go read the full article. Anyway, here's the summary that don't have to click on. Basically, the social network is adding a box to the top of its newsfeed for users in 14 countries that offers to provide tips on spotting fake news. If the user decides to click on it, they're taken to Facebook's Help Center, where it provides 10 helpful tips for spotting fake news. What they've said, well, and you can take this with a grain of salt, is that it is not a permanent addition to Facebook. It'll only be there for a few days, they said in a blog post, but they are working on more ways to flag to users that a post may be false. For example, by making it easier for the community to report misleading content. So they're under particular pressure to deal with fake news in Europe. This week, Germany approved a bill to fine social networks up to 50 million euro if they don't remove fake news quickly enough. So that'll motivate the engineers to get on that fake news removal. But again, like putting Facebook in charge of it, putting the community in charge of it. The community is the problem. Where do you think fake news comes from? People creating it, and then people sharing it and liking it and being like, oh, wow, this is amazing. I can't believe this herbal supplement can change my life in just, 4 days. That's my voice of people who believe fake news.
That's pretty good. I believe it.
Wow, this steroid cream, I can gain 18 pounds of pure muscle in just a week. I'm pretty sure that's what they all sound like. So I think I like a help center with tips for spotting fake news better than I like a community run thing, because that just seems like it's going to turn into like a war between r/the Donald and r/ most of the rest of Reddit. But good luck with that, and I hope you avoid that 50 million euro fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You got to be of two minds about this, because if there's something out there that's really awful, fake, dumb, and people are sharing it, maybe they should do something about it. But where do you draw the line? Where do you decide, right? And do you trust one of these big companies to make that call for you? And
another where is the line moment is is Facebook really responsible for it if that is genuine user created content? I don't know. they're certainly okay. In my mind, they are certainly responsible for it if this is like something that is pretending to be fake news, but is actually sponsored content where they're making money by disseminating false information. That is a fairly obvious one from my standpoint. And I'm not just talking like a link to someone's to a website where it's, you know, the link to HTC Vive.com where it says we make the greatest VR headset of all time, where it's obviously a store. I'm talking the ones where it appears to be an article or a testimonial. My wife actually recently met someone who worked as an actress to do fake testimonials. So she would put on a lab coat and she'd talk about, you know, my patients experience, you know, an improvement in their symptoms in 92% of cases on this drug. And that's like, it's this shady kind of underground acting industry.
Right.
And, you know, there, where Facebook is actually making money off of this information being spread, there's a clear responsibility to remove it. But something user-generated is really a fine line. And I'm sure Twitch chat is absolutely full of free speech stuff. But what you have to understand is that the right to free speech does not cover posting on a private platform. You are not entitled to say anything you want, anywhere you want, without being given the boot. What you are entitled to do is criticize your government without being imprisoned. It doesn't cover certain stuff. So just to be clear, free speech is not just like, you know, a carte blanche to say, I'm not going to say it because the one time I said, we can't say this. Naturally, clips of me saying it were all over the internet the next day with the cut off the beginning part. But yeah, it is not actually a license to say anything you want on the Linus Tech Tips forum, for example. We can edit your post. We can delete your post. We can nuke your account. That's our right. So there you go.
Spoken like somebody who's moderated a forum for a while.
Oh yeah, our Google AdSense was turned off permanently like 2 years ago because there was a post your wallpapers thread that ended up with a bunch of porn in it. It's like, you post your wallpapers within reason, smart guys and gals. Anyway, that's pretty much it for me. I don't have much else in the doc here that I feel like I need to cover. Oh, we've got people asking you to talk about Vega. Again.
Okay.
So you got 3 minutes. Riff on Vega. Can you tell them anything they don't already know and aren't already really excited about?
It depends on what they know.
I mean, they sat here for over an hour watching us talk. We got to reward them somehow. Look at think of the people.
Vega has returned to high-end GPUs.
Oh, we know that.
Yes. So, biggest architectural change in the last 5 years.
Now we know that too.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are you looking for?
I want to know if Nvidia is going to get knocked down a peg.
Well, that's the plan.
Okay.
But you know, I can't tell you anything too detailed at this point in time. I'm sorry.
It's
coming.
Tell me this.
Yeah.
Can you not tell us anything because you don't know, or because you just can't tell us?
Some of each, right? Some of each.
So you know things.
I know things.
You know things.
I know some things. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, guys. We're gonna say goodbye for this week. Special thanks to Scott for flying all the way out here from Timbuktu, because he doesn't actually work out of AMD's headquarters, and joining us here today. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We'll see you again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. So many of our viewers don't get that reference.
Yeah.
I only get it because my mom loved the show. And we had like recorded VHSs that I would watch as a kid. Like, it's sort of before my time too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's I vaguely know about it, but I don't know if it was that show was over by the time I was
70s.
It was in reruns.
Yeah,
when I was a kid. But
yeah, it was running in the 70s, so it was definitely before my time.